All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Scott Bass. I'm the strength conditioning coach and athletic director at Vancouver College and IST lead for us in Canada. Also a member of the Canadian Strength Conditioning Association Advisory Board. And for this month's quarterly newsletter, we are going to be talking with Carl Bergstrom, Canadian, who is the director of performance for the Golden State Warrior. Been there for 3.5 years. So, Carl, thank you very much for your time today. Welcome to the interview, and thank you for taking your time out of your very, very busy schedule to get together. Carl and I have known each other for a long time, both from Vancouver. Haven't had a lot of time to catch up, so I am really interested in having some time together with Carl again. Last time we got together, we were, I think, was Dave Tenney's really excellent sports science conference down in Seattle. So looking forward to catching up. So, Carl, thank you very much for your time today.
Absolutely, Scott. My pleasure. I'm looking forward to it.
Perfect. In our interview today, we're going to start out talking about Carl's timeline from his undergrad at UBC all the way to his current position at Golden State Warriors. We're going to talk about networking and how he used networking and the importance of networking to actually get into professional development and advancement in your career. We'll talk about developing trust with athletes, staffing within the Warriors, and we'll look at a lot of strength conditioning related questions when it comes to programming, injury management, athlete development, as it relates to the NBA compared to the regular strength conditioning for our regular athletes. So, Carl, just to start out today, could you, from Vancouver initially, started out with an undergrad at UBC. What got you interested in strength conditioning, and how did you go from an undergrad at UBC all the way up to your current position at Golden State Warriors?
Yeah, thanks, Scott. I mean, it's a really long kind of flow, but Cole's notes are, I actually didn't start at UBC. I started at UVic. I went to school not knowing what I wanted to do. One day I wanted to do medicine. The next day I wanted to do business. I was kind of all over the shop. And then through my third year, I was actually in Quebec City, having a fire with my cousins, like as French as it comes, sitting out there just talking. And one of my older cousins had asked me what I wanted to do. And I said, I'd love to work in professional hockey. I work for the Canucks. But I said, but I'll never get there. And he was like, well, why not? I said, well, I'm not super athletic. I'm not super strong. I never played at a high level, even though I played. I don't think it's possible. Because that's bullshit. I said, okay. And then he literally from there on out, I kind of started thinking, well, maybe it is possible, but let's just, get into kin. Let's transfer over. Let's see how things go. So I went to UBC, and at the time I was trying to get into kin. My grades weren't even good enough to get into kin. So I transferred. I did, I think 12 or 13 courses in 1 year to get into kin. And I was also doing my medical prereqs just in case, I was kind of shooting for both. And I just fell in love with kin. I was lucky enough in my third year to start working at level 10, where Scott, you were, incredible mentorship there. And, from there, I just started chipping away. And I was there on and off for 6 years. And while I was going through UBC, and then I graduated with my undergrad, and I really wanted to kind of dive into something a bit more specific. So I did my MKin, which you also did through UBC with Dr. Gallo, she's awesome. And I focus more on biomechanical analysis of the skating stride. So we're very hockey centric initially, with, the goal of trying to get where I wanted to get to. And all that time I was actually working at level 10, running a hockey program with development athletes between like 12 years old all the way up to pro, as we kind of dived into it. But that was the initial drive to get into this. And I loved it. I had always been an athlete growing up, but like small scale athlete. And I didn't really start training till I was 21, 22-ish, and just fell in love with it. And then kind of went from there.
Awesome. So from that, can you describe how you ended up at Golden State? So you're going through your education, you got some initial work experience. How do you end up at Golden State coming out of that background?
So before Golden State, I had worked with the women's national team for soccer. I worked with the Whitecaps for 5 years. I worked with level 10 exclusively for, I think, 5 years. And then I ran the hockey program in the off season. So pseudo with them for another 2 or 3, I can't quite remember. and then I was also doing private work on the side. So I did anything I could to continue to grow as a strength coach, and I really didn't say no to very many opportunities, and I was pretty inundated. And to be honest, I was fortunate that my wife now, who was my girlfriend at the time, she really, made it possible by, working really hard and allowing me to follow kind of my path, even though there wasn't a lot of money to be seen initially. So kind of coming back. So I started at level 10, and I had a very good mentor. Every story, there's always a mentor. And I'm more than willing to compromise money for mentorship. That's, that's going to come up later. That is really everything. So Joe McCullum, and then other really great people there, but Joe was kind of the big one. And for those of you who know him, he's one of the scariest looking humans in the world. He's like, he got this long goatee. I don't even know what he weighs, 6'6", big burly guy. And, I used to be terrified to show him programming, because he would just kind of look at it and just flat out ask questions like, why? Everything question, why are you doing this? He's not questioning you as much as he's asking you to like have a reason why you're doing what you're doing. And very quickly, that was a really key part of my process. And so I was at level 10 working privately, and not to jump around, but working in the private setting, it has value that is incredibly important, because whether you're straight out of school or you're 15 years in, people are paying for your time and they're trusting in you, and you have to take on a lot of responsibility early. And you might have 30 to 40 people that you see that are all different. Some are athletes, some are, a dentist, some are, have hip OA, and you just have to be creative and really think about what you're doing. And so that was a really important part of my life. And then through there, I met Ben Sporer. So Ben Sporer was with the Canadian snowboard cross, and he worked with level 10 and some of the people there. And Ben was, for those of you who know him, he's now with the Caps still, and he's doing a great job. And I actually, said, Ben, like, how can I spend time with you? Can I do sessions with you and just pick your brain? And we chatted, and then organically, a position with the Whitecaps came open, and it was as junior as a position as you can imagine. It was like, as a stipend, really. And then so Ben put me forward, and it was a sports science role. It wasn't a strength and conditioning role, but I understood that an opportunity is an opportunity. So I got to meet Rick Celebrini, who is now I'm still with. I've been with him for, this will be my 9th year. So we met Rick. Rick was kind of running the show with the Whitecaps. Ben was there as the entire sports science piece, and worked with those two very closely. And then I met another one of my mentors, who is John Poley, who's the head of physical preparation with the Whitecaps. He's incredibly bright, one of the best strength coaches I've ever met. He really helped me kind of grow to another level as well. So I was working with the Whitecaps and also working privately. And then I also had third opportunity with the women's national team, which was fantastic. Maria Gallo actually helped me out with that. And I got to meet another really influential piece in my life, which was Cesar Milan, he's Swedish born, Goldilocks, he's a surfer boy, but he was awesome as well. And he was very methodical. Everything he did was very structured and precise. And, I learned a lot from him. And then we spent a lot of time together as a whole. And I think I was with them for 2 or 3 years through the World Cup. And then so through this 7 or 8 year window, I had the gym privately, the hockey program that I developed, the Whitecaps, the women's national team, and then other one-offs for individual client options or typically athletes. And I just kind of kept driving. And then every year with the Whitecaps, my role became more and more demanding. So it went from a junior sports science role to a little bit more full-time to assistant S&C. And then I kind of, had a little bit of a niche with the return to play stuff, because in soccer, one of the best parts is you're on field, and I couldn't even kick a soccer ball. I was awful. So I had to learn to, do that. And the guys laugh at me, but every year I had more and more opportunity, and Rick Celebrini, we became relatively close. And then, so when he was offered the position with the Warriors, I was I was really hoping that there was a SNC position open, and there was, and we came over. And so him, myself, and Jerry Ramajita, who's also from Vancouver, made the way over, and that's how we got to Golden State.
That's awesome. So um, it's funny. It's right now we're talking about mentorship, and you touched on a number of things. Mentorship, networking, huge thing. So one of the big questions I get from a lot of the younger strength coaches in the US system for strength conditioning coaches, it's pretty structured. You have the NCAA system where you go and you're a grad assistant and you move on to an assistant, and then you start meeting lots of people and you pick up positions. The Canadian system is a lot different. It's a lot less structured. You talked about the need to actually do a lot of private work on the side. So I want to touch on two things quickly here. The importance of mentorship in your personal development. How did that make you a stronger person? And then you touched on networking, and you described how you network to move up your career path. I'm just curious to see, when you are networking throughout your professional development, was it something? It seemed like it was almost a mix of things falling on your lap, which I don't think are luck. You put yourself in a position like that, but also things that are actively reaching out. So how much? I guess let's start with mentorship first. How important is mentorship? Do you mentor people right now? Cesar Milan, actually Sports Scientist of the Year this year in Canada. I was just in a lead program with him where we had to actually find a mentor, and it's a lead sports scientist. It's a leadership program, and then actually mentor people. And that was one of the biggest things that I've had, is like, I'm not really ready to start mentoring people. And Chris Spencer actually reached out to me, another level 10 grad that's doing his master's at UBC right now, and asked me to be that role for him. And it's something that I'm really enjoying it now. And I'm being a lot more confident as a mentor. So when it comes to mentorship, how did mentorship help you along the way? And are you mentoring people now?
Great. So mentorship for me is everything. It's absolutely everything. And it's not about being opportunistic and trying to take advantage of a relationship, because you don't know where that's going to go. I definitely don't think it's luck. I think it's self-reflection and being aware of your environment and being aware of people who are influential for the right reasons, and trying to find ways to learn from them. But also, like, I'm sure this what's really common is people reaching out, say, hey, I'd love to pick your brain. Okay, that's great, but there's only so much time in a day. And so whether you're going to mentor or you're looking for a mentor, I think it's important for young strength coaches to understand how they can provide value back. And not that, people who are in more veteran positions don't want to help, but it's just, it can be challenging, right? So you have to find mentorship, but you also have to prepare yourself for how you're going to give back. So for me, it was, I will literally train you at 5 a.m. if it means I can pick your brain for an hour. Or, I'm really intrigued in hockey. Like, I'll come do a session with your boys for free. And it's not being opportunistic, but it's understanding, like, okay, 20 minutes of your time is worth 5 hours of my time. It just is what it is. We're all human, but this is how I'm going to do it. And that cannot be underestimated. So one is finding a mentor, but also, being patient. But at the time I was incredibly impatient, and it's just making sure that when you do ask for time or for, try to establish mentorship, that you're prepared for it, and you're willing to give back for that process. As a mentor, I don't want to say this the right way. Why I think, you just mentioned with Chris, and that being a mentor it's a huge responsibility, because people are coming to you with questions, and you have to be prepared. You have to be on your game. You have to challenge, but encourage. Like, it's a huge undertaking, and it's something that I'd love to continue to do. But it always has to be in the context of making sure I can take on that responsibility and not just kind of take it. Within our group, we have a super keen G League strength coach. I spent a ton of time with him. Our group, as John Poley was with me, he was the head, and everybody knew that, but we were partners. Like everything we did, we talked through it, and we lifted every morning together, and that was our time to collaborate and talk through ideas. And that's how I wanted to be when I was here. So um, it's more of a collaboration than a mentorship, like, because our group, most of the guys have been around for a long time and they have different experiences, and it's as much as having conversations like, what do you think of this program? Now I'm kind of veering all over the place, but to answer your question, to solidify, for me, if you're gonna find the right people, you have to know what that right person is. Is it, are you trying to run a business? If you're trying to run a business, find somebody who's ran a business. Anthony Finley's done an incredible job with Level 10. If you're looking to get into sport, like who is there and how are they influencing it? Like making sure what a good mentorship is, or mentor would be, and be prepared to give back, because their time is valuable and they don't want to be rude. But if they have families, they only have so much time in the day, so make sure you can do that. And then 3, would I like to mentor? Absolutely. More and more as I get older, because I feel like you can simplify things, but that's always on a case-by-case basis, for sure. I do want to say one thing that I struggled, like, I'm not a dinosaur, but I'm 35. I've been in this for 10 plus years. And even when I was running the hockey program, like, I felt the need to have social media, but I would never, I would just post training videos, and that's because I needed to. That's running a business. And there's a balance between becoming a good strength coach and running a business. And they're very different. They don't have to be, but they are very different. And so a lot of young guys, I find, they're trying to establish themselves, and they put a ton of effort into the social media aspect, where, that is important, especially if you're trying to set up a business, but it cannot be the priority. The priority needs to be getting people around you that are going to challenge you to, master your craft. And then that's secondary. And that has to be through and through, because I can tell you this, when we hire, and when most people in my position, or our positions hire, if somebody is too aggressive on their social media, or you can kind of read through that that's their priority, it's a no-go, because they're not prioritizing what's important.
It's awesome. So some great advice for young strength coaches out there when it comes to networking and mentorship out there. So let's guide the conversation back to your current position at Golden State. You come out, you've been working with the Whitecaps, you go with Rick Celebrini, and you've got Jerry Ramagita. You get the opportunity to go down to Golden State. As a strength coach, one of the biggest things is creating trust with the athletes you're working with. And you need that trust in place so that they will not only buy into your program, but for them to be completely open with you so you can maximize their development and their performance. Going into Golden State Warriors in 2018, fall of 2018, you are going into a team with some massively big names on it. You got Kevin Durant on there. You got Steph Curry. You got Klay Thompson. You got a veteran team too, built around them. They're one of the top teams in the league. You're a young guy coming out of Vancouver. How do you walk into a situation like that with those big names and start creating trust with the athletes?
That's a great question. So to sum it up, the biggest thing was, like, there's 2 pieces. One was, like, just don't mess it up, but like, no joke. But as strength coaches, we all want to help. We really do feel like we have a lot of answers for performance. And I think we do. The hardest thing coming down here was to understand that I had to do less than more and just be present. So I was at the facility all the time. Be present, do less than more, like, low hanging fruit, make sure you're addressing, but don't try to come in and change the world, because they see through that. So it was, don't mess it up, and just be very conscious. Everything that you were doing had a purpose, and then you could slowly chip away at establishing things that you wanted to. In pro sport, a lot of people fail when they come into new environments, because they come in and they look at the nutrition, and there might be cookies, and they're like, pull it, no, can't have this. Or, right away there might be wine on the plane, and you're like, no, we can't have wine, it's against performance. Well, they just won 5 championships or 3 championships, went to the finals 5 times. So maybe that wine brings joy within reason, like I'm not saying, I'm giving you an example, but trying to do too much too early is a recipe for disaster. And, I'd like to say really Rick is, his social IQ is on a different level, his emotional IQ, and everything that we did was very calculated in terms of when we came in, or when we tried to impose changes, or when we didn't. And there was a lot of discussions in daily meetings, and integration with current staff, and it was a learning process, and it was hard. Like, there's times when I felt like I was doing nothing, but it's because I was used to doing so much more.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
that makes total sense. That's awesome. So just talking about Rick here, just looking at when you came in, your official title was head performance coach at the Golden State Warriors, and you're now up to director of performance.
Mhm.
So I'm just curious about how that delineates, but more important, I'm curious about your sports science and sport med team. So with your performance staff there, in Canada, they call it an integrated sport team.
Yeah.
What comprises your sports science sport med team? How many people is that? And then how do you guys work together? And then let's maybe start with the strength conditioning aspect of it. I think you've got about 4 coaches on, and then let's just build ourselves out from there and just describe how you guys all work together for us.
For sure. Yeah. So we've grown a lot, obviously, as most staff have. Initially, it was myself and Kyle Barber, who was another performance coach. And then there was a hybrid kind of internish / junior position, which was a DPT. So in the US, like a physical therapist with a CSCS, who kind of straddled both sides, and, was really like a Swiss Army knife, like whatever we needed. And that was one of the coolest positions, because you get to be in both worlds constantly, which is really valuable. And we had Jerry, who was our lead performance therapist, very amazing manually and all that. Rick, who he is a physical therapist. What's unique about him is he's an elite athlete first, played national team for soccer, understands performance very well. So a little bit of a refreshing approach on the clinical side, where he really understands when to push and what it takes to compete, but he also has an amazing clinical background. So Rick, who was the director, and then we had our head athletic therapist, and then an assistant athletic therapist. We had massage therapist, not on full-time staff, but massage coming through for practice. Nutritionist Dana Lease, another Canadian, who was our consultant, and then Dave Taylor, who was in the NBA, then he was with the USOC. Now he's with us full-time as our sports science consultant. But early on, we've grown a lot from there now. So now we've added a third position. Our athlete monitoring piece is quite a bit more robust. So that's why Dave's on full time. We brought on another therapist, another Canadian, Danny Langford, SFU grad. And, coming back, I guess one of the things that is most unique, and I'm going to sound biased here because I really do think we have one of the better groups in pro sport, is it's as simple as this daily meeting. We have a daily meeting regardless. It might be a 5-minute meeting where it's roll call and we discuss the guys, or it might be an 1.5-hour breakout session. And everybody in our group is in that meeting. Therapist doesn't matter. And if somebody's not there, they call in. And that is the staple of our integration as a group. So therapists are discussing with strength coaches, and we're discussing what we're going to do with that player, what we need to look at, if we need to collaborate on a session, scheduling, et cetera, et cetera. That's kind of the staple of our group and our integration as a whole. And it is unique because, our director, like I said, he is very performance driven, but he's also a therapist. So he understands both worlds very well. And he also gives us a ton of autonomy to run things the way we see fit, and we just have discussions, and that's kind of how we drive things.
So in your daily meetings, are you going through player by player, doing like a checklist of injury status, health status, everything all the way through on that? So when you're having those meetings and you're coming up, how do you use that information? Like, and how did you integrate? I'm curious about, like, with your performance analyst, does he provide information on, do you guys have a list of how much playing time they've had, how much
Yeah.
accumulated volume you have? What's looking in there? Who's guiding the decisions on, first of all, who's the lead guy that's guiding decisions? Or you talked about collaboration and not sort of micromanaging in there.
Yeah.
Who's making decisions on what's being done?
It depends on what we're discussing. If it's an acute rehab versus like a really kind of late stage rehab, if it's strength and conditioning, if it's load, I don't like the term load management because it implies rest, where load management is basically like find the right amount of load. But whether it's that, there's nothing that doesn't come to the whole group. And Rick is the head. And then there's myself as a director of performance, and then our head AT, who's now the director of medical services. We do inherently, carry that responsibility, but I'm not lying when I say it's truly like an integrated approach. If it doesn't matter who, if somebody comes up with a really good idea, we'll let them run with it. And then because we have a daily meeting, we can reassess it.
Perfect. Good. So let's focus a little bit more on the strength conditioning aspect of it, just because this is a strength conditioning interview. So I'm going to take it down to that daily meeting in season with what's happening on. But starting out in big picture, let's start out. Season's over. Yourself as a strength conditioning coach, what are you looking at for baselines for players? Like, when these guys are done, are they going back to? I'm assuming most of them live in San Francisco, but are any of them going back to their own guys back there? Are they with you exclusively? What kind of testing do you do with these guys for baselines? Are you doing nutrition, blood work? Are you doing strength conditioning? Are you actually doing any kind of max testing with them? What kind of are at this level? These guys are at the top. You don't have to do a lot of performance development with these guys. What are you looking for when the season first ends?
No, that's a great question. So in any professional sport, you can't mandate that people are in town. What you can do is create an environment that they want to be there. And then if they choose to be there, they are. It depends where you are in the NBA specifically. I think NHL is very similar, where you'll have, if you're in a better city, like a city that's nice in summer, typically guys will stick around a little bit more. We've worked really, really hard to make our summer program kind of as elite as it can be. And so we're fortunate that we have a pretty good chunk of our roster in for a good portion of the summer. It is very important for them to get away as well and hear different voices. And most of them, there's really good scrimmaging or runs, if you want to call it. And, of course, LA, New York, Chicago. So guys might be in and out, but as a whole, we have a lot of them in, and it's really not that different than a typical summer program that you do for a development athlete. Just, at the end of the day, these guys are already at a certain level, and their craft is the sport. So they're not going to take 8 weeks away from basketball. That makes no sense at this level. But we do have a window where strength and conditioning is the early focus, where we can, get them sore, push them very hard, and not risk them, going to scrimmage and hurt themselves. But it's a tight window, so it has to be calculated. There's very few people in the NBA who can't jump at an elite level, who aren't fast, who can't accelerate, who can't move unless they have pre-existing injury, or their skill is just at such a high level that they can get away with a lack of athleticism. So to your point, we always want to make sure that there's not a glaring limitation. So we do have we've got 10 sprints. So we do acceleration testing, lateral testing, peak speed testing. We've got force plates, our gym aware. We've got a plethora of it, but we spend so much time with these guys that we're fortunate that we have a pretty good book on where they are, even leading into the off season. So I'm the only, I want to watch how I say this. The first 2-3 weeks for me of the off season really drives the rest of the summer. It's that 2-3 weeks where, you can focus on their body, and they can leave really sore safely. They can adapt. They can, they can go home and sleep. They can get on a good rhythm of wake and sleep cycle. The nutrition is tied into the blood work, all that. And then from there, it's just about progressively loading them and integrating. We're really, really integrated with the basketball coaches. So the on and off court. And then we drive from there. And then really, halfway through summer, their court load, the way basketball is still pretty high. And then so we just, we try to undulate it with base off of how much they're going to be doing on court when they get an off day. And we pick and choose our windows when we hit them hard. And then we also learn to work within the confines of the sport and know when, we'd like a 90-minute session, but we take a 30-minute session, but we prime them for what they're going to do. I don't know if that answers, that's more of a global answer, but.
Yeah. So I'll get into a little bit more on the specifics here. So in those first 2 to 3 weeks, give me what is an actual training week look like, and what's your exercise selection kind of look like in the weight room?
So exercise selection for me, I'm very much not ever stuck to something. I'm not like, you got a clean squat bench or no cleans, everything needs to be, I'm not like that. It really depends on the athlete. If the athlete, a lot of these guys don't have the greatest experience with Olympic lifts coming into college, most of them don't really lift before they get to college, and then they get kind of tied into certain programs that deter them. But if they come in and they've got a good clean, they'll clean. It's just not all that as common in the NBA with their frames and stuff like that. But I'm not married to anything like that. I don't have a process. It's what the athlete needs right away. Terms of how, for me, these guys are so explosive. Anything that's dynamic or concentric based, they're just gonna knock it out of the water, and they can cheat their way through that. So definitely a high emphasis on tempo work the first 2-3 weeks, to a pretty decent level, whether it depends on the individual, but that'll be the main focus. Because for me, if you can, whether you're doing performance testing, if you watch somebody goblet squat with like a 5-second eccentric and a 5-second at the base, you're going to see where there's limitations. You're going to see if they're shifting off that ankle, if they're breaking like a leaf, if they're getting rounded at the bottom. Like, you can see a lot through that, and that's where the control piece comes in. And most of them, they've never trained like that, so they tend to get pretty sore pretty quickly. But a 2-3 week block with certain frames like that is important. And then from there, it really ties into what the need is. So for example, you go Monday to Friday, we might go light or very little on a Wednesday. So we know that on Tuesday and Friday we can hit them really hard. So we might, lift in the morning on Monday, get on court on Monday afternoon, get on court Tuesday morning, lift them with quite a bit of volume and intensity on the Tuesday, give them Wednesday off, and then roll back through that. On the Friday, like, we also don't want them to be too fatigued, but on the Friday, we know they have Saturday, Sunday, then we can, really hit them. So it's not that complicated. It's just, for us, when we do load them, we want to make sure that they can recover and respond, because these guys they'll do 5-6 hours a day if you let them. So it's kind of that rhythm. And I know it's going to come up. So you're going to ask me about in season, because we already kind of talked about this. So, it's so easy to say, when I first came in, work at a YTP, and it's like, we're going to try to load this way, that way. And the reality is you have to learn to be so flexible. So over the last 5.5 weeks, we've slept in our bed, I think 11 or 12 nights. So that's 40 days to put in perspective. Now, our November was amazing, so I'm not complaining, but that's an important factor to consider. My first year, we had 54 flights in 5.5 months. So where and how we load is really on a week-to-week basis. We have guidelines that we have to follow. Like, if guys don't load for 2 weeks and then they load and they're sore, they play bad, we've just completely hooped ourselves. But we definitely microdose 15-20 minute sessions on a regular basis, based off of game density. If we have 2 games in a week, there's our window. Like, let's find it. If we have 3 games in a week, then we might go post game for 2 of them, and then find a practice day where we can get something where their legs are a little bit fresher. If we have 4 games in a week and they're a high minute player, they're going to load very little, or it'll be, concentric only so that we take out the DOMs or things like that. If we have 4 games and a guy's not playing at all, that's completely different. We'll load him right through. He's a development athlete. We gotta push him, keep him ready, right? Because in the NBA, more than any league, a guy can go from not playing for a month to being a full rotation player. And, they keep going until they don't. So we have to keep that in mind at all times.
Awesome. So like just specifically, I'm really curious about this. Tuesday night, we're just looking at this week. Tuesday night, you played Memphis, who's number 3 on the East or the Western Conference.
Yeah.
Last night you played the Bucks. I'd be curious about everybody's mindset after that game, because they are number 4 in the West, or sorry, the Eastern Conference. Tonight you got Chicago, that's number 1 in the Eastern Conference, and then you got Minnesota 2 nights from now. When are you guys training this week, or what did you do for training this week? What are you planning on training for the remainder of the week?
So that comes back to like a breakout. So top 3-4 guys from minutes. This is the densest 4 days that we've had all year. So they're not going to load post game or anything like that. They'll get a little potentiation, a little bit of load pregame, kind of get the nervous system rolling, but that's about it. Everything else is kind of around recovery. The mid-level minute guys, for example, we would have, hit him Tuesday after the game because we had Wednesday practice, and then on the back-to-back, just recovery. For the low minute guys, we can load them 2 to 3 days. So that's, it's not the perfect answer, but that's basically it. And to your point, yesterday wasn't the greatest game, and as a whole, you can't, there's 82 games in a season, so you can't get too tied to wins. You can't get too tied to losses. If there's one thing I can say to anybody here, is never get too high, never get too low, because you'll ride the wave and you'll enjoy it. And then you can every team, even the best teams in the world, they'll go through windows where it's challenging. So the mindset is, yesterday wasn't great, today's a new day, let's move on. And our leadership group, our coaches, like Coach Kurt, again, emotional IQ is through the roof. He knows how to talk to the guys and get things going the right way. So, we lost, and every team, if you look at the last 20 champions, I guarantee those teams had 2 to 4 games a year that they absolutely smoked, and you just move on.
Yeah.
It's how you respond.
That's awesome. Well, and that's one of the things, Carl, like I could pick your brain on the intricacies of like, how do you deal with the mindset in this situation? We can go on for hours and hours and hours, but like you said, time is valuable, and we're really short on time today, and I appreciate everything you spent with me. Got one last question for you right now. This is probably the toughest thing probably for you. You're a father, you have a young family at home, young daughter at home, family at home. How is it incredibly difficult for you to manage family and profession? How does that work out for you? Do you see this being like a long-term career for you? I know that's a big can of worms, but
no, right now, yeah, that's like a, hey Scotty, let's go grab a couple beers and like take the feet. No, it's by far the hardest thing. It's by far the hardest thing. If you're going to get into this line of work, you have to understand what comes with it. Like it's amazing. By far the best club I could ask to work for. Really open, inviting. The guys are great. The staff's great. My wife is incredibly supportive in everything. And that's the only way it's possible. But the demand is it's a lot. It's vast. So if, I wouldn't change any of this for the world, and I'm here and we're driving, like this is everything. But understand, if somebody wants to be here, I think it's important to reflect on at what cost. If you want to have a young family and you want to be present, we work a lot, and we're away. Like I said, I'll be away from home 120 days this year, 130 days. So again, I wouldn't change it. Like this is really important, but it's a very good question. It's a very good question. And SNC career turnover, whether you're in pro sport or not, is very high. We all know that. And that's for multiple reasons: financial, time commitment, young families. Like it's all real. So if you are going to follow this, great, shoot for it. Like, I mean, there is opportunity. One thing I wanted to make sure I said is I didn't realize how many Canadians are in pro sport. They're everywhere. If you want to do it, you can do it. You just have to set your mind to it. Like, go to the NHL. In the NBA, there's probably, our team alone, there's 7 Canadians. Detroit, strength coach Canadian, Toronto, San Antonio. There's 2 or 3 more. Like, they're everywhere. So it's just about what you're willing to do. But once you, I kind of veered off there, but with the family piece, it's hard. I mean, any strength coach who's been doing this for 10 years, they're like, okay, you know, up at 5, programming, split days, everything is fee for service. You know, you're not on salaries. There's a lot of things to consider, but I'm fortunate with the family situation that I have.
That's awesome. It's good to have good family support. Well, Carl, just want to thank you for your time today. I know you got to rush off to a team meeting. You guys are on a pretty dense, like you said, pretty dense schedule right now. So great overview of how you got to where you are and what you do on a daily basis in the profession. Like I said, I could sit here, we could probably have like a 4 or 5 hour meeting and just start nailing down some of the stuff with the questions and the can of worms you opened up with just your general statements in there. Just gets my wheels turning. But I just want to thank you very much for your time today. So thank you for everything you're doing. If I'd like to get together with a beer for you sometime down the road again, start catching up. But thank you very much for your time today, Carl.
Yeah, thanks, Scott. And I love what we're trying to do here with the Canadian Strength and Conditioning Association. It's important, it's needed, and let's keep pushing this forward.
Awesome. Thanks so much, and good luck tonight against the Bulls.
All right, thank you. Take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.